What is up, Workbringer here, and today we're going to check out a Plaguefall +5 that I did today, and I'm just starting to use Mythic Dungeon tools. It is kind of required for, I think, like +5 and higher, and then mandatory for +10 and higher where you spawn Pridefuls. You need to plan it out. So that was my path that I'm going for. I've designed it so that we don't have to do any weird skips that require a rogue, and we don't have to hopefully backtrack at all. And I'm getting more familiar with the count numbers, and again, very grateful for the very slow ramp up in difficulty. And I think after 5, basically 1 to 5 are kind of all the same. Not too difficult. 5 you get a new affix or a new effect or whatever. We have bursting. But I've done some 7s, which I'm going to do a video of next. And at that point, the scaling with the damage gets to the point where if you're not interrupting, you're wiping, which is pretty interesting and pretty unforgiving, and I am not used to doing dungeons like that. Now, we are relatively under-geared, I guess, compared to the content as well. But more or less, with 5 people, there's enough people there to basically interrupt everything or disrupt everything that needs to be. And it kind of becomes my responsibility as the tank to start to call that out. So I'm going to have to figure that out with a pug. I am still trying to figure out a way to get a consistent group. That would be much better, but you know, pugging kind of fits my lifestyle too. So we're just doing the old Plaguefall dance. There's multiple ways to skip this actually. They actually took out some of the ability to skip in Plaguefall, but I like the route that I do today. I think it's pretty good. Again, for under +10. And the main thing that I'm telling people is that we need to kill the Stormer first, right? Without really even talking to anyone on comms, because I actually did the other side 5 where we were in a Discord. I didn't record it because I thought that would be kind of like a little bit weird to record, you know, like a kind of pub Discord. I thought that was weird. But in this one, I'm just basically like, kill the Stormer, because they don't cast anything that we can interrupt, I don't believe. But we can stop and stun the AoE that's happening, basically. And I'm sitting on like the Fungal Mancer or the character mob that can be interrupted. I've got a lot of interrupts, so that's kind of my approach to this. +5, again, not very... it's pretty forgiving. Right, +5, especially I think with like kind of the relative gear levels that we're all at. Again, I'm still 190. You'll see on my +7 Mists run that I do get a 200 level item, but it's my shoulders, which is my legendary, so sad. But still, you know, this is early days of gearing up, like first week, so how sad can I really be? I mean, kind of sad to be honest, but anyway, we're just going through these real slow. Right, taking our time. I'm interrupting, and I'm like, kill the ones that are doing crazy AoE. My kids got some presents tonight, so they're very happy and running around in the background. Those are happy children's sounds. So the difference with this route that I chose is that you have to kill 2 Plague Rocks. Right, and so as you get higher up into the Mythics, the run and order starts to vary quite a bit depending on the tank. And yeah, so like people assume we're going to just jump right into it, right? Because that's the Mythic 0 way, for sure. Actually, Mythic 0, you can skip a lot of the middle. But that requires coordination, and it's a little bit unintuitive. So I just tell them in chat, I'm like, hey, we're going to kill 2 Plague Rocks. Can you come back for a second? Like, trust me, this is how my route works, right? And so this is where I'm learning how important routes are for tanks. Like, we really are the ones that should be pulling, in my opinion. And you know, I'm also the one that spent 15 minutes beforehand not only running these myself, but then like based on the runs I've done with pugs, I'm like, okay, what's gonna give us count and kind of keep the momentum going as well. And I did a dungeon where it was my first kind of like above and beyond annoying group, and there were some mistakes made on my part, which I admit to, like, completely. And I suppose if I ran it perfectly, it wouldn't have turned into an annoying group. But essentially, the healer, whose key it probably was, so I get it. You know, it's stressful. We were doing a hierarchy as well. And that individual felt like we weren't going to finish. and then started pulling and doing things like second guessing like what I was doing, and it just makes things difficult in the end. So the point being, I would say, is that as the tank, it's like even if it's your key, it's like you kind of have to let the tank just run it. Like whatever they're gonna do, whatever they want to pull, if you're not used to it, you just gotta go with it. I don't see another way of doing it. You know, high mythics, like we were doing, I guess like 7s and 8s, you know, approaching 10s. You can't just start pulling stuff, and they were pulling before I was going in. I was like, you don't know the route, and if we were doing a +10 and like DPS or healer pull something that's not part of my route, I'm like, I'm gonna leave. Like, I don't want to start the beginning of my pugs that way, but when we get to +10, I mean, this is where you want to probably be, like in a friend group or at least on Discord or something like that. I'm gonna be like, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but like I have this plan. If you intentionally pull something before I'm ready or something that I'm not planning on, I'm like, we will wipe. I'm like, we're gonna get prideful somewhere bad, and I'll just leave. I'm like, I don't care, like whatever. Anyway, so that's a bit of luggage from another dungeon. This one is excellent, and I wanted to show it because I made a video when I was first learning this, which wasn't too long ago, of how to not do Plaguefall. It was like really bad examples of pulls, and not that this is going like perfectly or seamlessly, but you know, Plaguefall is kind of a messy, gross, slimy kind of place anyway. So the beginning, that's the count I'm looking for. We're about 31. Again, if this was +10, this would have been a disaster to some degree. I'm very much of the mindset for Plaguefall that you get Prideful in the first pack, and then you pull the pack after this to get Prideful at 40 for this boss. That's the way I'm probably going to do it, unless you have a rogue skip. I've seen a pretty good route with that. We are lusting for this one. And you know what's really weird is the order of attacks is different on 5. I don't know if it's different and it's random, but I swear everything under 5 so far I've ever done, it starts with the Plague Stomp, right? So we immediately start with this dot, but in this one he does like the Plague Spew and then the Stomp, which is actually nice. It gives us a lot of time to just use Lust, right? Because if he stomps immediately, we all have this like 2 or 3 second downtime. It's pretty bad. So because he has done Stomp second with Lust, with this DPS comp, which is not massively higher, the Warrior's doing pretty well actually, we're able to burn him down really far. However, the CCing is not incredible. I had called out for an Ice Trap for the big one, and that didn't happen. It's definitely possible that the Ice Trap happened and someone broke it, but there's some healing about to happen, I think. I forget if we completely do it. I feel like that one's pretty close. I don't know. It's completely fine. It's not clean. This is not like a clean beginning. I ended up like pulling the first mob a little bit weird, but 5 still relatively forgiving. This on a 7 though would already be like like kind of bad. Having done 7s at the gear level that everyone's at, like I'm at still 190, like close to 191 really. 190. Yeah, 7s, I don't know if I'm going to be pugging those anytime soon. So this is interesting. I watched a video saying that on higher keys, this is like mostly getting ready for +10, is that canister there. What you're supposed to do, and I'm getting destroyed by these things, like 5 starts to like, you know, ramp up the damage for sure, plus it's fortified. But what you're supposed to do is actually blow up that canister with those slimes and possibly that big patrol guy. Blow that up with them next to it, and it puts this huge debuff on them and me, so I'm supposed to eat it, but allows the DPS to melt it, essentially. So that's one strat. That is a strat for comms at the minimum. Like a pug with like communication, like Discord, that's fine. But just like a regular one, I'm not going for anything like that. And plus, the healer's gonna be like, "Why are you dying so hard?" Right? I'd be like, "You need to Iron Bark me." If we were on comms, I was like, "Just Iron Bark me. I'm pulling big, double pull, whatever." And yeah, but not here. But that is a strat I've seen. We do need to kill these. This is, as they say, some efficient count, because this is pretty easy mobs. I am checking my Mythic Dungeon Tools route here, and we have to kill this Plague Rock. So just double checking. Going over, not a big deal until we do +10. Going over with +10 with Prideful is a disaster. It's wipeable, honestly. But here, I just want to make sure that we don't have to go back, because I think I did like a +3 here, where I botched the route a little bit, and we had to go back. Like, we finished the second to last boss, and then I had to go back. So I'm just double checking here, like not too worried about a single played rock here. These aren't too bad either, though I think in hierarchies they're starting to be an issue. I'm just trying to like interrupt the Plague Binder, and there's probably something that people are supposed to do to these slimes. The slimes are pretty brutal on the boss, but for the ads they're not too bad yet. But again, I watched some +10s and they were like very serious about these slimes, and especially these three. A lot of people will skip this in Mythic, but you kind of need this count. And if you wipe, you know, God forbid, you can still wipe multiple times, actually. And time a +1, +2 becomes impossible. But you can wipe like twice normally. I have found, at least in like the, you know, +7 and under keys, it's usually been okay. You muscle through it. People need to be a little bit more serious, but I did a Theater of Pain 6, I think. And we wiped like 4 times and we still finished it barely. But we still were fine, right? The Theater of Pain's kind of forgiving because you kind of just spawn back in the middle. It's not that far of a walk back, but still, we were getting demolished by some of the mobs in that one. And there are some mechanics like tornadoes and whatnot that are one-shot mechanics. Like you mess up just once, right? Someone took too much damage. That's someone probably me. Healer goes off the ledge because they were healing and not looking at the tornado. That happened and stuff like that. So that's going to happen. So we're just cleaning up as we go here. Nothing to remark. But what I like about this route is it's right down the middle. It's essentially the route that I normally do, and it did in Mythic 0 when it really doesn't matter. Like, you don't even have to have count. And I've just cut out, for pug reasons, like, all the silly, cute skips. Like, there's some available in this one. I think they're not worth it, in my opinion. So I was waiting for the hunter there. Luckily, they're back. I have my legendary there, procking, and boom, big deeps, right? Holding, like, almost 10k in the beginning. And then I remember... this is one of those Divine Shield moments. Now that being said, this warrior and hunter and honestly we're pumping it. Like, I think that little break there, everyone got their cooldowns back, and we demolished that pack. And that pack is pretty dangerous, so that's a great one to use your cooldowns for, like I used mine, right? Pretty good. Clean up these metamorphoses. They are not one-shot, unfortunately. So I forget if this is actually on my route, but they're so easy, and they're right there. I know that, like, this stresses out some healers that like I'm doing like little pulls like one at a time, but like this is the route that I'm going for now, you know. And you know, we're taking however many, like 15 seconds, 40 seconds, I don't know, to kill these two, but I'm a little concerned about the count here, so I'm like, hey, let's pick these up. Not a big deal, right? So what you can do here is you can actually go around the right edge and you bypass these little plague borers or whatever those are, those things that have those plague containers on them that slow you and hurt actually a lot if they hit you. You can skip those and go around the edge, but then you have these tentacles and they're kind of awkward to kill on the side, so I'm still deciding if it's worth going over that way. I went on the right side last time and I think it was like a +3 or something slightly lower. And overall, it was worse. It was just not straightforward, and I don't think that many people do that skip. And actually, they mentioned at the beginning of this that like every group we do, it has a different route and a different skip. So I think there's something to the familiarity, again, with pugging of this route here. It's just right down the middle. Like everyone's probably done something pretty similar. This is pretty much the only part of the dungeon where I'm like, pretty much not sure what I'm supposed to do here. I think what it is I'm actually still in range of the bad there, and I die, right? And I think it's because we're on the platform, and I didn't actively see like, oh, you're still standing in like a puddle that's gonna explode because of the stairs, right? But I could have looked at the inner radius, but yeah, that's the only one I misjudged. But that one's a little sketchy. Like you can't see it because of the platform. Anyway, I'm pulling this one over here. This is the correct way to do this boss. If you watch my Plaguefall 0 video, I think it was, like Plaguefall Mythic 0, I tried to pull them at the same time. That's just bad and not even possible probably at a key like this. Maybe Demon Hunter could pull it off with like, you know, some sort of fancy jump plus silence sigil, but not for me. The one thing I need to remember here is to conserve my Avenger shield, because like that's my like get over here. That's my like silence the caster and then the walk towards you. And I don't have it for 9 seconds, so that makes this pretty awkward for me right now, right? So I'm gonna pull this over. I also should have dropped a marker. Again, on comms, it's easy to be like, I'm pulling it here. But in a group, people just jump right over, right? And that's what you don't want to do, right? So we want to pull them both back to this middle part. And as long as that healer and hunter who's over there comes over here, we will not aggro the boss yet, because you really don't want to fight the boss with these mobs and the slime. That is a disaster. So I was able to pull that off on Mythic 0, but we're not pulling that off here on anything higher, right? So this is the right way. We pull both packs over to the center, wait for this dot to drop, which is safe anyway. Then I can actually mount. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring the Plague Binder and his friend. This is a sketchy deal, because he's going to hit me with the belch. Even from there, I was like, okay, that's a very long cast. Good to know. We silenced him. I think the hunter silenced him. And we just got to get everyone in this back corner. And I'm real worried. I'm really worried about where the healer is standing. And you probably see me AFK for a second and eat this belch or something. I'm typing to him. I'm like, get over here. Right? So he was maybe in range, like you see where the boss comes in. But I ate some damage just to type that out. Again, with comms, not an issue. I'm like, hey, everyone, like, get in the corner. And this is the cleanest route I've seen for sub-mythic 10, right? No prideful, not an issue. Another thing I learned is like, hey, some people would run right over to that island. He is going to go over here. And so we're in the slime less, and it's gives everyone like a little bit of a breather. Hello, frog mount. And yeah, so, you know, I'm a little wiser. I've wiped a little bit more. I've seen some better runs here. The fact that he put F-Low there, I mean, I guess. But generally, the way these go is that DPS is focusing some slime, and I'm off in the corner focusing the slime that kills everyone's damage. So I'm not with the group most of the time. But again, that's why you play with a consistent group, because you just do the dungeon the same way every time, less to think about. Anyway, I'm like, kill the bomb, right? And so there's this nuance here that I need to keep this congealed slime away from everyone else. I don't know the distance, but if it's close to people or the ads or something, it will eat all their damage, and they will not be able to kill that bomb, and we die. But at the same time, if no one tanks the boss, he starts casting real fast a really bad dot on everyone. That's the Burning Strain. So he needs to be tanked. So he needs to be tanked even though he's jumping around, and we need to kill the slime. And that's the fight for the most part. And it's just kind of knowing this dance in this order. It doesn't usually get too bad unless, you know, you left the pack alone. Or, I don't know, we get unlucky with something. I'm not sure. But I'm not usually too worried about this one anymore. Having wiped it multiple times though in the past, of course. I wonder if there's any other mechanics. What I'm finding is that in +7s is where, again, the mechanics start to really kick in. It's like, there's these orders that I didn't know about, and I had just been like kind of just doing whatever I wanted so far with mobs and whatnot. But there's all these debuffs and ticking damage things that I think at 7 they become too powerful to ignore, essentially, right? Like, because like on normal, it kind of doesn't matter how you do this because you won't die to it. But at current gear level, the 7's where we need to start to actually pay attention to the order. So I've been learning those things through pain, essentially, right? There's so many things to look at that it's not until I find like a problem area where it's like, hey, we wiped, or, you know, that was very hard. You know, I have to look at it and be like, what's going on? And that partially explains like the, you know, the non-stop video making right now. I'd like to get to the point where I can tank +15s. I don't know why. It's just this little goal I made for myself. So I'd like to be able to plus 15, get fully +15 capped. That would be cool. That's like kind of my goal for the rest of the year, is to just kind of get to that point. I don't feel like I'm too far. That being said, the +10s I think are a whole other story for the tanks, and then especially in the pug world, if anything goes wrong, recovering Prideful may not be possible. From what I've seen from some of the runs that people are pugging, if the route gets botched or you wipe in a very bad place, it's over. You just can't time it. You could finish it, but you can't time it. So it's pretty unforgiving, which is cool. But for pugs, I might be in for a world of pain. I'm not sure. Now, starting this little series of pulls right here, the warriors actually pulled first, right? Because they got there before me. For that one, I'm cool with. I didn't say anything about it because, like, you have to pull that. It's like a given. Now, what's nice here is that no one tried to pull a fancy without me because I need to tell them the way that I'm planning to go. Again, this is plus 10, way more important. And I see tanks on comms that are like, they're friend groups, but they're like, you people, you sit here, right? And this also gives our healer time to drink. But it's like, you sit here until the mobs come back. You don't touch them until I say. That's not something I can do in a pug, right? So if you're doing like this weird triple pull with an LOS and then like a, whatever, that doesn't happen here. Also, calling out CCs in pugs is also pretty awkward, right? So that one, I tell them not to touch the blue, specifically. I'm just like, don't touch that blue one. Only touch the green one, and then I do it, they watch, and then they do it. So this is the route that I have planned. I picked up that as well, and I'm looking at count, and we have 79. We want to go down with about 90. And that's pretty consistent with all of these kind of like winged dungeons. I got out the invisible one there. These are no joke in +5 with fortified. If DPS or the healer, especially a cloth healer, gets surprised by that pack and they all attack, it's one shot and you're dead. And that's even more true in +7, which we'll see. If I decide to make a video about that run that I'm kind of still like kind of angry about, like in general, but we kind of end up pulling this at the same time, which is fine. I'll take the count more or less. But it's because of where those like invisible spiders hatched. So with that being said, I used to pull that tentacle first. The issue then is that people will kind of stand where the invisible spider is because they may not know. And it becomes an issue. So either way, you're kind of pulling the spider and that tentacle at the same time. These packs are no joke. I'm trying my best to silence certain casts. I'm going to freedom here. Also, this guy shooting... this hunter here, I try to face him away from the group, which right now is kind of ambiguous because he shoots this avoidable, but most people in pugs kind of get hit by it if it's facing them, right? They're not watching. That blue dot that hit them, and that hurts, and it's just gonna waste mana and time. But we're clearing these out. We're finding the stealthlings, and one thing I did before this pull, before we started the whole dungeon, is we got in. And I looked at the comp, and I told them, I was like, hey, like the second to last boss, which luckily everyone knew what that meant. I was like, I cannot get all the webs. Like, it's impossible for me to get all of them. So we just got hit by that sniper just dropped the dot on everybody. That's a lot of work for the healer to get that off. That's annoying. It'd be great to get rid of that. You need to run into these pulls. I marked them. Look, we all ate that. That's terrible. I should be facing this Venom guy, the sniper, away. But I'm getting kicked all over the place, and it's pretty messy still, right? And at higher keys, this is probably kind of an unacceptable pull on my part, so working on it. But, to my understanding, I need to run in and mark people and be like, you kick this, and if it's like someone that has a lot of things, that we rotate. But that's impossible in a pug like this when we're not talking. But anyway, in the beginning of this, I told them, I was like, hey, this boss, I'm going to need help getting the webs. I've heard different strategies, but the pug one is like, if you see a web, AoE it down. Right, so both warriors are like, cool, we're going to heroic leap on them. I was like, great. And the hunter has something maybe. And I tell him, I was like, that's job number 1. Okay, we're lusting, great. I need to go get all those ads because they're just free casting damage dots, and the longer they're there, the more we are going to die. Now, the one thing I forgot to emphasize is that people get stuck in webs too. I don't really know when that happens, but it happens, and you gotta DPS those down. That's actually priority 1. So that's as well as that could go. Like, those spawned under me. I slow-footed it over. Oh, there we got someone stuck in a web over there, right? My hotbar was kind of over it. They got him right out. So they're on it, right? It's like we don't tunnel the boss, we do the mechanics, or we die. That is basically it. Like this is you know, if you had pride, I guess you could maybe try to get through this in one phase. And lust, but I've never done that. Like it's usually 2 of these web things, and if it's 3, it's a bad day. But let's see, are they heroic leaping? What's going on? Are we getting help here? Yeah, more or less. Yeah, we round them up pretty quick. We got a dude in the back, so I'm gonna divine shield this for all the damage, right? This is hairy because that person was so far away. Was that the hunter? I don't know, but they're very far away from us, which you're not supposed to be. You're actually supposed to stack, but I think that's just too much to try to digest as a pug. If you don't stack, you become like solitary prey, and they like kind of something happens. You're supposed to stay close to each other in general, but again, +5 pug. I can't type for like 2 minutes, explaining like every little thing. But as you get higher, you kind of have to. So pugging kind of falls off, or you just have to assume or hope that basically if I'm pugging in as the tank, that like it's a group and they're on Discord, or we all get on Discord, which I did my first Discord pug, which was completely fine and did help. And I got mega one-shot in the other side. So when I do like the other side 7, I'll definitely call it out. I didn't actually record that one, but the route that I have designed for sub +10 the other side is great. It's actually kind of the other side's kind of annoying for routes. It's one of the like harder ones, I think, actually. But there's essentially the third pull into other side is murder. And the ones before it are kind of tough too, but I need to kind of conserve cooldowns. The other thing I learned is that these Plaguebound Devourers, if they touch you in these higher keys, you die. Which, when you do normal, it's like they're not even there. Or heroic, or even Mythic 0. I've just like sat in front of them and just tanked it, and it's been no issue. That is not the case here. So I am just ranging it, smacking it with the shield at range, and just taking them a lot more seriously. Because like a pack of like 5 of them, if they all attack me at once, I'd probably be dead. Right. So I gotta drop consecration, slows things down a bit, and just stay out of there. Yeah. Look at this. Look, like it's that pack on anything lower is really not scary at all. And again, I've left them alone too much that the warrior is getting threat. So that's a mistake. But yeah, +5 Plaguefall. I think this is the highest one I had done. Plus they're bursting after, which I'm not actually tracking bursting. It is a thing. And there's like, you do the dungeon, you learn the mechanics, you learn the route. But then there's all these other mechanics that you kind of hadn't been noticing, or at least this is my experience with it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that mechanic that like you kind of noticed before, but never cared, didn't matter. All of a sudden that one mechanic is the one that one-shots you. So I've been running up against that as I start to do +7, and I forget if I've done an 8. I was about to do 8 Halls of Atonement. That one's pretty straightforward. But these other ones, like these diseasey ones, these diseases, a lot of the times like you get them and you're like, oh, okay, whatever, you just keep going. Not on the high keys. These have to be dispelled, they have to be blocked. You have to deal with them a lot more. So luckily, on the tentacle front, we get the easy patterns every time. Hardest one for me is when they all come up and then they just rapid fire in a circle. I have died to that so many times, and so have pugs. It's a hard one to deal with. But these are the easiest, right? Like the alternating one's easy. That big obvious front and side one also very easy and lovely. And I think the hardest is the full circle. That sucks. That one's really tough. I'm slow footing it over here to this ad. I'm probably going to end up un-CCing the freeze trap over there. I'm trying to be like respectful of it, but we got to burn. But the circle one's the hardest. The single one that comes up and then all of them after is actually tough too, because if people aren't paying attention, they don't realize you have to run instantly to that. And the thing is, the little slice of pie that's safe is actually very small, especially close to the tentacles, so you actually are better off backing out. So I've learned how to wipe all of them, and so now I kind of know I have my strategy for it. And you only gain those strategies, unfortunately, by wiping it, by getting hit, right? Like, look how close I'm playing that. That's because I kind of know the cone now. And it just takes time. You just got to do it a lot, which is why I tried to front load this first month of the game. Is that I'm already seeing pugs for 15. I'm like, what? You guys are pugging 15s already? Like, you have to really know the dungeon. And those, a lot of those groups, they're like, we're gonna look at your last season's score. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have literally no score from last season. But you need to know the mechanics like really early on if you want to progress, because then we +2'd it pretty good. You got to know the routes, and you got to know the fights early, because people are going to be in +15 world, and then you're going to be stuck with the people who are not that inclined later on, and it's going to be hard to stay with the good groups, in my opinion. So I got no gear from this, kind of a bugged out screen as well, but I don't know if proud's the word, but happy that this route worked out. This is one of the first ones for +5 and going into 7s and 8s, whatever, that I planned out. We got count. I think we picked up a couple extra to be safe, and we timed it in +2. What else could we want for a pug? I'll see you on the next video.